Welcome back to another episode of the Outdoor Adventures podcast here on Brownfield. I'm Brent Barnett, and this week on the program, we're talking about Morel mushroom season. Joining us now is Chelsea Harbach with Iowa State University. Chelsea, thanks for being with us again this year. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Brent?
Doing really well. As you and I tape, we're in early to mid-April, kind of that time frame, and I feel like a lot of people are getting excited about Morel mushroom season. I've been seeing a lot of Facebook posts out there in some of the kind of southern states, and those reports, they're working their way north.
They sure are. Yeah, people are, I think, getting really antsy.
Absolutely, myself included.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it'd be good to get some background again, Chelsea. Tell us some of your work with Iowa State University and kind of your background in mushroom hunting here.
Yeah, so I'm the plant disease diagnostician at the Iowa State University Plant and Insect Diagnostic Clinic. So my path to loving mushrooms is kind of different, I think, than most people, because I got here through basically like microbiology. When I took my first plant pathology class, that's when I was like, whoa, like fungi are really cool. It naturally expanded over to the macroscopic fungi. Though most of what I do and deal with are microscopic fungi affecting plants and making them sick. I do the wild harvested mushroom certification workshop for the state of Iowa. And that's an annual program that we do that anybody who is hunting mushrooms and wants to sell them legally, there's a certification that people need to participate in and pass in order to legally sell 8 different types of wild harvested mushrooms you can find in Iowa. The program started with morels and then the legislation expanded to morels and oysters. And now we have 8 different kinds of mushrooms on the list.
Wow, I didn't realize you had to have that type of certification to sell those types of mushrooms.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you're supposed to, for like legal reasons. And I mean, like, if there's any mushroom sales happening when if a sale is happening by somebody who doesn't have a certificate, like that's an issue. If a sale is happening with a mushroom that isn't on the legal to sell list, that's an issue. It's just kind of a way to try and make sure that the people that are selling mushrooms in Iowa, that there's some kind of, safety built into it,
Sure, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What all kind of takes place then during your workshops that you host?
So we go over the legislation, to make sure that people understand, what is in the legislation, what rules they need to follow with the legislation after they get their certificate to sell mushrooms. And then we go over like basics of fungi and mycology and morphology of macroscopic fungi, both basidiomycetes, which are most of the mushrooms that we find and eat, and then ascomycetes, which are where morels actually fall technically. So morels aren't technically real mushrooms, but for like a general sense, we do lump them into mushrooms. And then we go over all of the morphology of all of the legal to sell mushrooms in Iowa, and then the poisonous lookalikes that can be found in Iowa and how to distinguish them. And then there's like a hands-on portion where participants get to look at preserved samples that we have of most of the mushrooms that are on the list, as well as poisonous lookalikes. And then there's a test.
Very good. When are those going to be taking place? Have they already happened? I'm not sure on the timelines.
Yeah, so the last one is actually this Saturday. I schedule them for like March and early April each year to try and get ahead of morel season. And I do three a year. I usually space them out a couple weeks. And there's like a brief, like 1 hour online portion before each of the like in-person workshops that are always in Ames. And I know it's like a little inconvenient for some people to come to Ames, but as the legislation stipulates, part of the certification requires identification of physical specimen. So we have them here in Ames because that's where we have everything. And I don't know, Ames is at least like pretty central in the state.
Yeah, it's a pretty
So
centralized location, so
yeah.
people can kind of go to wherever they come from and kind of go to that central portion of the state. So
Yeah.
that's great. Well, I hope
hmm
everything goes well this year. And you know what's
hmm
funny? When we were getting ready for this segment here, I had a Facebook memory pop up from like maybe 10 years ago or so, whenever I had posted some morels photos that I had found. And it was on April 9th, and I had all these big yellow morels that I had found
Nice.
back then. It wasn't Iowa. I was living in Northwest Missouri at the time.
Okay.
So that just kind of, I see those memories pop every year.
Getting
That gets me
excited.
thinking, well, the timeline's kind of right now.
hmm Yeah. So there's a Facebook group called the Iowa Morel Report that publishes or like updates or publishes an updated map whenever there's a new like verified sighting of morels in Iowa. So you can see where in Iowa that morels have been seen so far. And they did post a couple weeks ago, I think, the map from a similar group in Missouri, just like you said, showing that, it's as you would expect, as the temperatures are increasing, it's just kind of creeping up north. And it's the time it's anytime now. I know that it looked like there had been a reported sighting in Polk County already, with the caveat of, I think what they found were like pretty small, and that, what's out there needs more time to get a little bigger to make it a little better for better picking and eating. So
Whenever you're out there, Chelsea, and let's just say you come across some of the yellow morels and they're kind of still bent over still and haven't come all the way up, do you leave them and mark that spot down and come back like a day or two later?
yeah, I'm a fan of like leaving them. I think, I don't know, it just like rate of like return on like, investment, you want to like optimize what you're getting out of what you're picking. So yeah, I'm a fan of that.
Yeah, I like to think I would be. My problem is I start thinking, oh, somebody else is going to come through here and find these.
Yeah, I guess it depends on if you're on private land or public land,
That's a good
what you
point.
want to do. Yeah.
Yeah. So whenever you're going out, what are some of the, I guess, terrain features or habitat you kind of try to key in on when you're morel mushroom hunting?
Well, always looking around trees, because generally morels are associated with different kinds of trees. A lot of times you can find them associated with like dying and dead ash trees, which are pretty easy to find in our landscape. Sometimes you can find them associated with tulip poplars, which are, I think, one of the easier trees to identify. And like shaded areas, obviously. So if you're like in a wooded area, if there's like a clearing, you're probably not going to find anything in there unless there maybe are some like tall grasses that you might like pull back and look for some morels in there. I've found some in there before.
Yeah. Whenever you pick them, do you just pull the whole stem out and have like the whole particle come out, or do you cut a little higher and leave that blackened
Mm,
stem in the bottom with the dirt and
mm,
soil still attached?
Yeah, it's like for like kind of food safety reasons, best practice is to cut above ground level with a knife that is clean. Of course, go and like clean them again later, but anything you can do to try and avoid any introduction of soil or debris onto what you're picking is optimal for food safety. Again, regardless of the fact that you are like they do, I let them soak in water for a bit before moving on, but I know just like the inherent risk of like some foodborne microbes that can exist in the soil, and try to avoid that.
You always see people talk about, if you pull the whole mushroom out and you bring that soil with it, that they won't grow there the next year. They won't pop up. Have you heard that before? Is that a myth?
I have. Yeah, that's not true. The mushroom or like fungus, of course, is existing in the soil as a network of hyphae. If you pull it up from the base, there's still a network of hyphae that are going to be there for following years.
Yeah. Let's go again here through kind of preparation. After you've picked them, you get back home. What's kind of your cleaning process with them and preparation for cooking?
I like to just soak them in water for a bit. That kind of helps with, well, first, before we do that, I will try to brush off any of the debris with the like soft bristled brush. I like makeup brushes for that because they are inherently very soft and gentle to the otherwise generally like delicate tissue. And then soak them in water for a bit to encourage more of that any extra debris that you don't get off with a brush. And if there are any bugs in there, the bugs will fall out then too. Then I like to let them air dry for a little bit, and then I don't know. I think I like to keep it simple. I've had them like battered and fried before, but I think sometimes when you're adding breading to the mushrooms, it can take away from the taste of the mushroom. So I'm kind of a purist, and I like to just cook them up in some butter. And last year I did some butter and asparagus, some fresh asparagus, and that was really good.
I'll have to try that, cooking them in butter. And I usually just use a little bit of flour and then salt and pepper is kind of what I've always done.
Yeah, salt and pepper always.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't like to, again, I don't know. I just think breading kind of like takes away from the taste a little bit. I like the pureness of the mushroom.
Yeah, I can see that. You always hear people say they like to cook mushrooms and then make crappie fillets in the same day and kind of have like a crappie fish fry with morels on the side. That's kind of like a go-to for people.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, as we kind of wind down here this week, Chelsea, what other tips, I guess, would you pass along to listeners when they're going out mushroom hunting? Anything they need to watch for as far as like safety or places to avoid? Anything like poisonous weeds?
Yeah, definitely. Safety is always an issue whenever you're out mushroom hunting. Number one, make sure if you're going on private lands that you have an invite to the private lands, that you've like okayed it. There's obvious safety concerns if you're on private land and you don't have the okay. Number one, yeah, just for your own personal safety, don't go somewhere you're not invited. Then always considering the like location of where you're finding mushrooms is really important. If you're looking somewhere where there's any like potential like chemical runoff, pesticide runoff, those places should be avoided. Any place like along roadways where there could be any kind of heavy metal contamination in the soil, those places should be avoided because mushrooms are really good at taking up heavy metals. And then, if you eat the mushrooms that have taken up said heavy metals, you're going to get sick, and that's not good. And then, yeah, so like avoid roadways, avoid places near golf courses, or again, anywhere where there's, potential runoff. I'm not too worried about weeds. I'm not the best at like weed ID, but always like be careful, because obviously there are weeds that can cause uh, nothing wrong with the mushroom, but if you touch it, like that could be an issue. Or if the mushroom is touching that weed, it's possible that some of the compounds from that weed could be on that mushroom. So again, like cleaning important, and thorough cooking. Thorough cooking always very important when dealing with wild harvested mushrooms. I believe the USDA recommends cooking to a temperature of 135, I believe, Fahrenheit for safety. And then, what was the other one that just escaped me? Cooking. Oh, and like storage. As you're like collecting mushrooms, don't use plastic. Use like mesh baskets, something that's breathable. You want to avoid anything that could encourage moisture accumulation. The more moisture you accumulate, the more prone what you pick is going to be to decay. Make sure you're storing what you pick in a cool, dry place out of the sun as quickly as you can after picking it, and avoid picking overripe specimen. It can be that can be a tough one. It's like any morel you see, you want to pick it, but like there are definitely morels that I've seen that are past their prime that, well, and I mean, depending on the state of it, maybe you could cut out if there's like bits of the flesh that seem to be deteriorating, maybe you could cut that out. But like, I would be very careful about eating anything that looks like it is past its prime, because whenever decay has set in, you're going to have more openings for things that could make you sick. And always consume with like some amount of caution. If you find black morels, don't consume them with alcohol. And I would just say avoid overall overconsumption in a day. I was reading a paper from, I think, France, that talked about an individual that got sick from eating morels. But it said that, and I had to do the conversion, but he'd eaten like 1.5 pounds of morels. And I was like, what? But it was like over 3 meals, but like back to back. So like, there's like always like too much of a good thing, right? Like if I was going to sit down and eat like 1.5 pounds of carrots, I wouldn't feel well either. So just, consumption, or consume responsibly, make sure you're cooking things responsibly, storing them responsibly, all of that.
Sure. Real quick before we go, I wanted to touch on the public-private land. I know we hit on private land and having permission. In Iowa, Chelsea, is mushroom hunting allowed on public land when the turkey season's open? I wasn't sure how that lined up, because I know as you and I talk here in kind of early to mid-April, the spring hunting seasons for turkey open up, I think, the 14th of April. And I didn't know, can you go out and morel hunt on public land during that time?
So I've only talked with the DNR, and like I know like with the DNR, like hunting on public land is fine. I would say if there's any question about public land that you want to hunt on in the county that you live in, I would reach out to the county conservation board to check. As far as I know, like hunting on public ground is fine. I had not thought about hunting season, so that would definitely be something to check into and be careful about for safety.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's a good point. Definitely check with your county like conservation officer. Might not be a bad idea to put on a blaze orange hat or a vest too, just to be safe.
Yeah.
Never know. But
Yeah,
that was just in my mind and was curious.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Hey, if people want any more like tips or information, can they get a hold of like you or the folks at Iowa State about mushroom identification or anything?
Yeah, they're welcome to reach out to me. And I have a new colleague on our natural resources extension team that is working on some additional programming around mushrooms, including mushroom cultivation. So that's something to be on the lookout for like programming from Extension. Any questions about the wild harvested mushroom certification or morel hunting or safety, I'm happy to field those. You can reach out to me. Our email in the clinic is pidc@iastate.edu, or you can call us. It's 515-294-0581.
Really great to have you back on the show this year. Appreciate you coming back on. I know we had you on, I think it was May of last year. So we were kind of past that window.
Yeah.
And I thought we got to get
ahead of it this year. Yeah, good.
Good to see you, Chelsea. Thanks for coming on the show again.
Thank you, Brent.
Chelsea Harbach with Iowa State University here on Outdoor Adventures. You can find all of our episodes in our archives on the Brownfield Ag News YouTube channel or wherever you get your audio podcasts as well. I'm Brent Barnett with Outdoor Adventures. Have a great weekend.